One.
Good evening and welcome to the Chatham Airport Commission meeting of Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. The meeting is beginning at 5 p.m. This is a remote participation meeting only. However, there's a live streaming broadcast on channel 18. Pursuant to Governor Baker's June 16th, 2021 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Section 30A, subsection 20, until April 1st, 2022. This meeting of the Chatham Airport Commission is being conducted via remote participation only. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410 and use conference ID 718-125-341, followed by the pound sign. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. And may I request that the guests please turn their screens off and mute their microphones. Mr. Fulton, if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. I can move forward. Thank you. All right. Before we begin, just want to make sure that everyone understands that I would appreciate their mics are turned off. If you're on the phone and connecting that way, please just press the mute button on your phone. Otherwise, we get feedback and it's very difficult to hear and understand sometimes. So whoever's phone number ends in 5116, if you could mute your phone, I'd appreciate it.
Only 5116 is channel 18. We need to keep that open.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, thank you. All right. Roll call. Commissioner Burke. Commissioner Burke told me he might be late. He had a previous engagement. Commissioner Cortese.
Present.
Commissioner Donovan.
Present.
Commissioner Galen.
Present.
Commissioner Owens.
Present.
Commissioner Harrison. Present. For the commissioners, I think to avoid confusion as to who on a motion makes the first motion and the seconder, I will call for the first motion and then I will call for the second motion, or the seconder for the motion. Okay, so that way not everyone's talking at once. All right. First off, the minutes of the December 8th regular meeting. Does anyone have any additions, corrections, or deletions, or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I will accept the motion to, I will take a motion to accept the minutes.
So
Who
moved.
wants to move the first motion? Move
So
the
moved.
question. So moved, Mr. Galen. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Cortese. All right. Moving on. We have any announcements or agenda item requests from the public? Please raise your hand. I'll take them in order. Mrs. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Gloria Freeman, and I'm suggesting an agenda item for a discussion of zoning issues in the runway protection zone. I know it's on today's agenda, but I didn't see anything in the packet about the subject, so I couldn't prepare to speak to it today, since we have to speak before the commission discusses it. If I don't ask for the agenda item today, then I can't until your next meeting, putting off citizen participation for at least a month. So I'm going to thank you in advance for putting this on your next agenda.
Yeah, I think when we get to the, there are a couple of things in the packet on that. And when we get to it, hopefully it'll answer a couple of your questions. But yes, that will be addressed.
Thank you.
Mr. Haas.
Chairman Harrison, I'm just calling in because I believe that you neglected to take a roll call on accepting the minutes. You took the first or second, but just a minor point of order. But these days, every little point seems to be challenged. Thank you.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I don't do this very often. Oh, well. Okay. For the minutes, roll call.
Okay,
The motion was made and seconded. So Commissioner Burke is not here. Commissioner Cortese,
Yes.
this is for accepting the minutes.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Galen, Commissioner Owens,
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Haas. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. I don't see any other agenda requests for the next time, so we will move on to public comments on new business items. And I will say up front that once we get into section 4 on new business, this will be commission discussion only. So if you have questions on any of the items in tonight's meeting, under new business, this is your chance. Ms. Gibbs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have comments on a number of them, but it is kind of hard to comment when I don't know what you're going to say.
Well, the package was out. I guess you read it, I assume.
Yeah, but I'm sure you're going to be, well, we won't get into that now. I'm sure that I may not have to make comments depending on what you say, but there may be issues down the road. Anyway, As it relates to, I think that this can be answered during some of the reports that are coming up. I had written you about the vehicles that are parked on the airport property. And you had indicated to me that the airport manager has a lot of leeway and that the camper belongs to an airport employee and he's paying for the time it's there. I had written you back and said that according to the contract, it says all income derived from the operation of the airport will accrue to the manager with the exception of lease rental monies on airport property of non-aviation related business or land use, except for the restaurant. So I believe what you were saying is that those vehicles are paying rent to the manager, not the airport commission. And I would say, I don't believe that's, I think that those rental fees, because they're non-aviation use, first of all, I don't know why they're there. I can't believe we're running out airport property for people to store campers. But if there is any rent coming in, that should be coming to the airport commission, not the airport manager. And so unless I'm misreading the contract, I think that would be the case. That's number one. Number two, I think on December 31st, the airport commission did receive photographs of the Fisherman storage area that has a lot of stuff there that is right alongside the runway off of Wilford Road. There are propane tanks, washing machines, air conditioners, abandoned rusted out trailers, dumpsters, machinery that's unidentifiable, and tires. And it is in the Water Resource Protection District. I know that that was probably what prompted the FAA to say that that had to be closed. I don't believe the fishermen are bringing in that stuff. I think that it has been used as a dumping ground. At the last airport commission meeting, you said that the airport commission had voted to let the town lease the land for the fishermen, and that it was all under the control of the harbor master. I'd like to know if that was ever in writing, because the harbor master deals with the water, and my understanding is the only thing he did was to identify that these people were in fact fishermen that either lived or worked in Chatham. And I guess my question is, how could the airport commission and the airport manager allow that to continue for so many years? That debris is there and has been there for years. There is no question about it. And I'm wondering if a soil sample was done to determine whether or not there were contaminants in that soil. They are within, a half a mile of wells 5 and 8 that are showing PFAS. This is the very kind of thing that produces PFAS, and it is the Water Protection Resource District. So I think that's something that hopefully you can address tonight because it is time sensitive. The next thing, it would be the public relations. I saw the different proposals from various people, various companies. And one thing that popped out on one of them was that there is a vocal minority that do not represent most of the people in town. This is what they were told. An organized group of residents who stand in opposition to even the slightest change have attempted to create false narratives, disseminating inaccurate and misleading information, perpetuating that false narrative. And I guess my comment would be that when you present that to a PR firm, that statement is not positive. That's not collaborative. That's not trying to solve the problems that we have as residents, taxpayers who actually own the airport. We own it. So I don't think any amount of money you throw at a public relations firm is going to fix the problems unless and until the commission starts working with residents and taxpayers who own the airport. And I believe we have legitimate safety concerns. I don't like being thrown, just because I come on to these meetings, to be somehow scooped up into a group and say that we are a vocal minority. I'm an individual taxpayer, and I have concerns about Chatham, our water quality, the safety of people on the ground. I've been working long before you folks on bylaws for the planning board to make sure that people are protected in terms of bylaws that are drafted. And this just happens to be one of them, the RPZ, which does concern me. So I would hope that there is a different attitude moving forward when you hire this PR firm. I can't believe the numbers that the Counsel group is charging. I guess I'd also like to know where that money's coming from exactly to pay those kind of fees, because some of them say, you know, you have to put down quite a bit of money. And I guess the same questions would apply to the legal counsel that is on the agenda and the RPZ that is going to be under discussion. And because it impacts us, I understand that you've decided that this agenda is going to work for you. But when we don't know what you're going to say, and you are apparently taking votes, because you said you were going to take votes on something, but there's no indication what you're going to be voting on. I would hope that you would allow questions because they directly impact the town, or allow public comment at the end of the meeting so that we don't have to wait. Because your policy is that if we have questions on anything that happens tonight, we have to wait till next month to ask the questions. At the very least, you should allow public comments at the end of the meeting so that you know what our concerns are that remain. And so I guess that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I can address a couple of those things for you before we get into it. The Fisherman storage area is not on the agenda for tonight, but I can kind of give you an update. We're well aware of what's going on out there, and that's why we're closing the area. In deference to the fishermen, though, who have no place to go right now, we've left it open. Now, granted, there's no gate, and that absolutely causes a problem. The original agreement with the fishermen, I would have to go back and look to see if there was a written agreement originally, or whether it was just a voice agreement and said, yes, you can use that area, and the harbor master was supposed to manage it. We were collecting rent from the fishermen. The harbor master was when he collected permits from the fishermen each year, and part of that was if they had a space in the fisherman storage area, then that rent went to the harbor master and then got forwarded on to us through the town into our revolving fund. As far as soil samples are concerned, not since I've been a commissioner have we done a soil sample out there, but I think it's a good idea. Exactly how and when we do that, I'm not sure, but I think it's a good idea, and I'll certainly take that under advisement. The PR we're going to talk about, the public relations we'll talk about when we get there. And as far as the vehicle parking is concerned, I have taken it, you know, the vehicles parked there are, as far as I'm concerned, part of the not part of the airport, but are part of airport activities. And that maybe that's a broad interpretation relative to what you're saying and possibly what's in the agreement you quoted. But that's how I interpret it. And I believe I have the leeway to do that as the commissioner. There is a parking policy now on the website. I was going to mention that in my commissioner's report, and when we get there, I will, mention where it is.
As just a couple things, if an environmental assessment was done by groups who do that, and they saw the, how could we pass an environmental assessment with tires and air conditioners and propane tanks and all of that in a water resource protection on airport property? It wouldn't be up to you to order it. It would have been them to say, you failed the environmental assessment because of the contaminants that are in there. There are air conditioners and propane tanks, for heaven's sakes. So that I think is not good enough. I think I don't know how we pass the environmental assessment. Let's put it that way.
I can't speak to that because I didn't do the environmental assessment, so I can't really speak to it. I would assume that some of the things were done.
I'm talking about the airport assessment that was done for the AMPU.
I know what you're talking about.
While you are commissioner, so you are involved. You are ultimately involved.
But I didn't do the actual study.
Yes, but
we received the study from subcontract.
But you have paid.
Can I make a comment?
You have paid for it, and it seems to me that
Excuse me, folks.
it's our responsibility to make sure it was done properly.
I just noticed that.
Excuse me, can
I just noticed our consultant raised his hand, so I'll let him speak, and then Mr. Cortese, you can speak.
Hey there, Huntley. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine.
Yeah, so I mean, just to be clear, we didn't do an environmental site assessment. We did an environmental assessment in accordance with FAA regulations and the advisory circular. The environmental assessment that was done was specifically paid for by the FAA Mass DOT in a 5% local share to evaluate future projects coming out of the airport master plan. There was no environmental site or review that was part of that project. So there are two different things. There are two separate environmental assessments that would need to be done. So that the FAA was not paying for an environmental site assessment at the airport for the Fisherman storage area.
If it helps, Mrs. Gibbs, I did write down on here on my notes to investigate a soil sample.
All right, thank you. And then on the parking, I'm not sure how storage of 5 private cars and a camper and a trailer can in any way be construed as airport activity. I mean, that is town property, and private vehicles are being stored on there, and it is not within the contract. If you allow it, it's considered non-aviation use, which the commission can do, but you need to be the ones that are receiving the rental fees, not the airport manager under his contract. The only fees for leased property that he receives is the restaurant. So, you said you have no concerns, but I think you need to look into it because it started out with 3 or 4 cars, then there's a camper, and they're going to be there all winter. They haven't moved. And that's not what the airport is supposed to be used for private people to be storing vehicles on airport property. It's just not right. That's no different than having people, some other department in town allowing people to park in our parking lots and pay them money to park at Oyster Pond. It shouldn't happen on town property. So I would like you to investigate that and put that on a future agenda.
We will certainly do that. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Mr. Cortese?
Yeah, I just had a couple comments for Mrs. Gibbs on specifically air conditioners and propane tanks. I believe that most homeowners in Chatham in those same environmental areas have propane tanks and air conditioners, some of which are stored outside. A lot of propane tanks are stored in the ground. I don't know the exact environmental impacts of that, but that's the case. And then also, as far as some of the cars at the airport go, and this is a common practice at airports around the country, especially in a transient area where we have a lot of homeowners who use their aircraft to travel to Chatham to their second homes or their primary homes for that matter. They leave their cars there, so when they land, they can get to their homes. So that could be an account for some of the vehicles you see that are here.
And I would just like to respond to those two things. I don't know how you can compare the fact that people have air conditioners in their homes. They don't throw them out in their gardens, and they don't do that with propane tanks. It is the fact of the matter is they are contaminants. When you take them to the transfer station, you have to pay $15 for their non-hazardous disposal. So I don't know if you've bothered to go over to Wilford Road and look and drive in there and see the condition. That is not okay. And anyone who says that's okay, and it's being used by people to dump stuff so they don't have to pay the fees at the dump. And there are fees at the dump for a reason, because they have to be disposed of properly. And as far as, I'm not sure
Well,
you know.
I think that's speaking for someone that you haven't spoken with.
What does that mean?
And I don't know the exact reasons on that, and that's something we could look into. But that, as Mr. Harrison said, that's why we're closing that down. And it's as you know, it's not a simple process. It's complicated.
I know.
And the fishermen have been in this town for a long time, and if that's what they need for storage, then they need storage.
I
We
think
can't manage that as the commission. We can't be there every minute of the day and figure out what's at that facility.
Okay, I would just say to you that if you obviously haven't gone over there and seen it, the fishermen are not doing this. The fishermen's stuff is stacked very neatly.
I fly over it. I see it from the air. I have a better view than people on the ground.
It's not close enough, I guess. The fact of the matter is there are pollutants over there. It is on airport property. I can't believe that the airport manager or the commissioner
I'd love to.
did not know what was going on.
I'd love to chat with you about this, but we have a meeting to promote. We spent a lot of time on this, so I would suggest I will take this offline with you if you'd like. You can call me personally.
I have no interest in doing that. These are my public comment times, and normally it's not supposed to be an argument. These are my minutes.
Yeah, Mrs. Gibbs, we're going to take this. We'll take it under advisement. We'll take it under advisement. We know it's a mess back there. It's a very difficult and complex situation. But all I can say is we'll take it under advisement, and we're going to be cleaning it up as quickly as we can.
And again,
best I can tell you.
Fine. And then about the parking there, those are not people who came in for a week and are traveling, and that those vehicles have been there for months and they're being stored. They're not somebody who just flew into the airport and is keeping it there for a couple days. So I would like you to investigate that as well.
I'm going to cut this off because we're just getting in the weeds with this. So I will I'll talk to the airport manager about the vehicles, but we do have a parking policy.
These are very simple questions. These are simple questions. They should not be combative. I'm asking questions.
I know.
And those two issues. And I don't know why we have to get into a big debate. It's your jurisdiction. I'm asking for answers. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fulton, if this is about, do you have something new to add?
Yes, I have a question that I think Mr. Karen can answer. In the meeting materials, it says that on the 28th of September and again on the 28th of October, either he or one of his colleagues met with perhaps one or two of you to discuss Chapter 100 versus aviation easements. I'd like to know, Mr. Karen, what did you tell them about Chapter 100 and what did you tell them about aviation easements?
Let me interrupt. Mr. Fulton, I answered that question for you this morning in an email. And I don't think it's fair to put Mr. Karen on the spot.
Well, I don't believe you did answer what Mr. Karen told you about those things.
I answered your question, and the only thing that we were doing in those meetings was preparing to go forward and not interpret the law and not do anything that would be illegal. So I think you're to be honest, I think you're kind of barking up the wrong tree.
You're drawing a conclusion. Well, let me ask the question this way. Mr. Karen, what is your view on Chapter 100 versus aviation easements with respect to removing what you call offending trees?
So Mr. Fulton, I think you're drawing conclusions that I gave legal opinions to the airport commission chairman and other folks at that meeting. It was a collaborative discussion to talk about Chapter 100, to talk about what aviation easements are and how they pertain to FAA regulations. So I don't know what more you want me to say other than it was an initial discussion and commentary between the Airport Commission chairman and myself and a few others regarding Chapter 100 and easements.
All right, I think you, in other words, you discussed in the context of the FAA what a navigation easement was, did you not?
I'd have to go back and take a look at exactly what material I prepared for that meeting, if anything. But I think it was more general questions about navigation easements, the FAA regulations, advisory circulars, and things of that nature.
Yeah. Tell me, Mr. Karen, what do you think a navigation easement is?
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to continue answering this line of questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think, everyone has an opinion. I could interpret a navigation easement different than you. I could interpret a navigation easement different than Mr. Fulton. And I think we need our proper legal counsel to make that interpretation when the time comes.
Are you going to have legal counsel with you when you engage in community outreach?
Well, absolutely.
Well, that's good news.
Oh,
In
good.
other words, when you meet with these 15 homeowners, you're going to take a lawyer with you.
When the time comes, yes.
When did you make that decision?
What do you mean, when did we?
Can I just bring up the point?
That's just, no, wait a minute. That's just common sense, Mr. Fulton.
This is this point is for agenda items. So we got to keep moving on with the meeting, please.
Okay, I agree with Mr. Cortese, and I thank you, Mr. Karen, for what you informed me.
Please mute your mic. Thank you. Nicole, I guess that's Mrs. Stern.
Yes, yes, Nicole Stern, thank you. This will just take a second, but I would just like to emphasize something the previous, I believe it was Elaine, was concerned about as far as having a soil test. And I did hear what Matt had said, that this was not required by the FAA. It would be a different, at a different time, but considering that those washer dryers, propane tanks, whatever, I'm an abutter to the airport, and that stuff has been there for 20 years. So who knows what's in the soil? So I think regardless of whether it was part of the assessment or not, that it needs to be done. And I hope that you will get it.
I agree with you.
Good. I'll wait to hear back that it is being done.
Well, I don't exactly know when that'll be, but yes, I've written into my notes, and I will talk to our staff liaison about how to proceed with that.
Well, if you need any private companies, I'm sure that we can recommend some. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I see Mr. Whalen's hand up. Go ahead, Terry.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was just going to similar thing again. I'm getting too far away from the agenda topics, but I neglected to retract my hand. Sorry about that.
Oh, fine. Okay, M&M. I guess that's Mr. Thompson, if I remember correctly.
That is correct, Huntley. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask about the sample letter. I have 1 or 2 questions.
About which? I'm sorry. About which?
Your sample letter. It's in the packet.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I presume that's the letter that you're planning to send out to people?
The letter's been sent.
Has been sent. Okay, correct. So it's more than a sample. Okay. So how many letters have you sent out?
22.
How many? 22?
22.
And what are these additional 15 that are being discussed then?
I'm sorry, what?
What are this additional 15 that are being discussed?
What are you referring to? I don't know what 15.
All right, I have heard the number, but okay, all right.
Is it anywhere in the documentation?
I'm not clear on that. No, let's.
Sorry,
I made a mistake on that one. So it's 22 letters. That's fine.
22 letters went out. We've already heard back from 4.
Okay. So
Mr. Karen says 2 and 13 in his meeting materials.
I don't know who's talking, but you're out of turn.
All right, that was Mr. Fulton, and he just said that there was something that Matt Karen had said in a meeting, that there were 2 and 13 letters. So let's move on from that. That's maybe a subject. Maybe Mr. Fulton wants to come on again and discuss that when I finished. Okay, in your letter, you talk about approach surfaces, which you call hours. So, you know, there are about a dozen approach surfaces scattered across your various documents, but there are only 2 existing approach surfaces, one for each end of the runway. And they're both defined in 14 CFR Part 77. Are those these surfaces you're referring to as hours?
I want to see where you're reading that. Where is that coming from?
It's in the letter.
Okay, let me get the letter in front of me here so I know what we're talking about. Here we go. All right. Which paragraph, please?
So the question is, I was asking you what approach surfaces are hours.
Which paragraph?
I'm sorry?
Which paragraph are you referring to? Where's our approach surfaces?
Yeah, I don't have the letter in front of me either. But it's close to the beginning. I can bring it up.
Oh, I see it here. As part of the project, we conducted an aerial survey of our approach surfaces to verify clear approach to runway 624. Okay, our, I guess, would be the airport.
Which surfaces are those? You've been talking about so many different surfaces in the last 2 years. I'd like to know.
I'll defer to Mr. Karen.
Well, I think
should we take this as a, Mr. Chairman, should we take this as a an agenda item in the future, or should we try to kind of stay on track?
This is on the agenda. The letter
on
is
the agenda tonight.
Today. Thank you.
I think we'll just
okay.
Try to clarify what we can for the public.
Point of order, Huntley.
Point of order.
Hello?
Someone else is out of order. Please mute your mic.
That's a point of order.
Who is that? All right, I'm going to go on. Mr. Karen, do you want to explain, please?
Sure, Huntley, it's runway type 4, and the link to the approach surface is in the second paragraph of that letter, where it directs the recipient of the letter to the link, FAA Advisory Circular 150-5313A. So that's in the letter. You can click on that link and then see where the approach surface is.
The link describes many approach surfaces. I'm asking you specifically what is referred to in that letter as our approach surface.
Specifically runway type 4. Consistent with the airport master plan and consistent with the airport layout plan, runway type 4.
It's not a plan. It's what's existing. What type of approach surface is that, which is currently our approach surface?
Once again, runway type 4.
Which is what type of surface is that?
It's the TERPS approach surface, not Part 77.
It's the TERP surface. Is that? Do you say it was the TERP surface?
Correct. Runway threshold sighting, turf surface as described in FAA 150, 5300, 13A as runway type 4.
Then you don't have a current, that is not a valid surface. You talk about our surface. That is not a current approved our surface. If
I'm
It's
not gonna,
approved-
I'm
it-
not
it
gonna go
most- it-
through the semantics of that right
It's
now.
not semantics, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think it's pertinent. Mr. Thompson, I think is pretty clear what we're talking about there. And if the question comes up from the individual property owners, we'll explain it very clearly to them.
Well, I can
Thank you.
explain it very clearly. It's not a turf surface is not an approved surface at the Chatham Airport currently.
Okay.
It
well,
most certainly is on the airport's FAA approved airport layout plan.
right. And that's what we go by.
I think this is a discussion for a later point to clarify.
Dr. Thompson, thank you.
Well, no, I can carry on. All right, this letter states that the commission will do everything possible, etc.
Oh, you just went mute. I can't. Your microphone turned off.
All right, I'm sorry, my mouse drifted over it. I'm saying that as a commission, you have not shown a lot of consideration for anybody. You approved 46 objectionable aviation easements without hesitation 2 years ago, an approach surface that passed through the bedroom of houses at the top of Great Hill. You excluded consideration of social, noise, and water issues from the environmental assessment, and you have rejected community input. So I question your providing consideration to the people that you have written to.
Okay.
There are so many other pending issues with the airport proposals that isn't it really putting the cart before the horse to even consider cutting down any trees on any private property? As you know, there is a solution described in the AMPU and recommended by the FAA, which you have not taken very seriously, that is to displace thresholds, which raises the approach surface above everybody's trees. And also, as you know, it increases safety for people on the ground by moving them out of the RPZs. So I have some more notes, but I'm not going to go on with it.
Well, thank you for your comments. Mr. Fulton, could you please turn your screen off, your video off? Thank you. I have a feeling we're getting in the weeds here, and I'm going to cut conversation here. I have to. We're never going to get through this. I know that there are issues that we are dealing with, and we'll do the best we can to address them. But we can go on and on and on with this. And so I'm going to cut conversation off right now, and I'm going to move into the next section. Although I do thank people for their comments. All right, we have a report by the Bikeways Committee. And if they're ready, Mr. O'Toole, I'm sorry that you had to wait so long.
No problem. Can you hear me all right, Mr. Harrison?
I can hear you fine. Go right ahead, sir, with your presentation.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share a bit about what the Bikeways Committee is planning or looking to do with respect to improving safety on George Ryder Road. I'm coming tonight simply to give you a briefing on terms of what direction and what plans the Bikeways Committee are working to implement. If you happen to see the Cape Cod Chronicle electronic edition this morning, it was a pretty good article by the Chronicle at a high level in terms of what the Bikeways Committee is up to. What I'll do tonight is bring it down a little bit and focus on a particular section that we are focused on here in the near term. So basically, from the Bikeways Committee perspective, The Old Colony Rail Trail is a separate off-road multi-use path throughout Chatham, except for the area along George Ryder Road, where there's a segment where the Old Colony Rail Trail operates on a share the road situation for about 1,300 feet. That stretch of roadway provides very limited accommodations for either pedestrians or cyclists. And Bikeways Committee regards that as presenting a fairly serious safety hazard for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles as well. We've had this situation in our radar scope for a while. Last year we launched into working on this. We obtained some funding from the Community Preservation Committee to engage a consultant, a roadway design consultant, to come in and have a look at George Ryder Road to identify the characteristics of the roadway and develop some alternatives and assess them and make a recommendation in terms of how we might best proceed. And so we have done that. We engaged a company, the town's standing roadway design consultant, Howard Stein Hudson, otherwise known as HSH. And they conducted their study as we guided them, and they delivered a report to us at the end of December. So we're now working off of that report. But let me talk about this maybe in 3 quick segments. This won't take a huge amount of time, but I want to talk a little bit about the current conditions on George Ryder Road, as identified by HSH. A little bit about the alternatives. There are 2 alternatives they've suggested for the stretch between the northern entrance to the Old Colony Rail Trail and the southern entrance to the Old Colony Rail Trail, which is where the Bikeways Committee is now focused. And we'll talk a little bit about what the current status of our project is and kind of what direction we're heading in. This is just mostly an information sharing situation. We're sharing this information with other abutters. The project that we're working on does abut airport property, so you certainly would have an interest in what we're thinking of doing, and we're happy to hear any thoughts you might have. So just to start off, the existing conditions on George Ryder Road, they were elaborated in much detail in the technical memorandum that was provided as a part of the information packet. But at a high level, a couple of points. Vehicle travel lanes on George Ryder Road are each 10.5 feet wide. The shoulders, which is where pedestrians and cyclists actually travel, are very limited. There are actually long shoulders where the shoulder's only 2 or maybe 3 feet wide at the most. And when you're having multiple channels of transportation, cyclists, walkers, runners, and so forth, that's a crowded situation, which is full of potential conflicts. And Mr. Whalen has just presented a photograph of a cyclist traveling as he should in the flow of traffic. He's encountering a walker, also walking as he should by walking against the flow of traffic, but you can see there's very little space. And then that competes with the vehicles pulling out of the parking spots there along the airport ramp. There are 2 crosswalks on George Ryder Road, one up near the airport hangar, which then crosses over to the northern entrance to the Old Colony Rail Trail, and a second crosswalk down more toward Ocean State Job Lot or Nickerson's Nursery, where cyclists and pedestrians can also cross, heading toward the south entrance to the Old Colony Rail Trail. As you saw from the picture, it's common for the non-vehicle individuals to encounter a conflict, and oftentimes that conflict extends out to the roadway when a cyclist needs to pass a pedestrian traveling in the same direction. If you could show a visual too, Kerry, that would be helpful.
Is Terry, are you there? Is that the visual you wanted?
So there's a situation we have, yeah. So here's a situation where there's a runner running with traffic. That's not what she should be doing. She's encountering a walker, a pedestrian walking against traffic, which is what they should be doing. But that obviously is not enough space to accommodate both of those folks. So that's an indication of sample of kind of what the conditions are like on George Ryder Road for, in this case, a runner and a pedestrian, without even getting into a cyclist who may be in that particular area. With respect to traffic volume, in season, the Cape Cod Commission has done a vehicle measurement. There are between 3,000 and 3,200 vehicles a day in the June, July, August season that's going both north and south. That's a fairly heavy volume of traffic. In terms of a peak hour volume, that occurs between 11 in the morning and 12 noon. And in that peak hour volume, there are 304 vehicles that pass up and down, north and south on George Ryder Road. Those numbers have been increasing over the course of the last several years. The peak hour volume has increased about 4.3% annually since 2018, 2019 until 2021. The overall increase in traffic is a little less. It's more like 1.5% to 2%. But the point is the traffic continues to increase, and that's just kind of the traffic volume situation. In terms of speed of vehicles, the speed limit on George Ryder Road is 30 miles an hour. In season, 48% of the vehicles that travel on that roadway exceed the speed limit. So we have a case where there's a narrow roadway, high volume of traffic, and almost half the vehicles traveling in excess of 30 miles an hour. In terms of the use of the Old Colony Rail Trail, in the summer season during a weekday, the average is about 765 users on the rail trail. On the weekends, that number goes up to close to 900. Again, going both east and west. So that's a fairly significant volume of pedestrian and cycle users of the Old Colony Rail Trail. As I mentioned before, the accommodations for cyclists and pedestrians is very limited. And there's a competition with vehicles pulling out of the parking slots there by the airport ramp as they park perpendicular to the ramp. In terms of parking utilization, we've done a parking utilization study during 1 week this past summer. Accounts were taken midday, weekday average of the parking, and that would be the 35 spots there that run right along the airport ramp. Weekday average utilization is about 9.8%. On the weekend, it jumps up. It's closer to 45, slightly more than 45% of those slots are used during the peak period. So there's certainly, from a historical perspective, there appears to be plenty of parking along that stretch of the road as it abuts the airport parking area. So those are the current kind of the key factors in the current status of the current conditions of the George Ryder Road in the area of the airport ramp. We asked the HSH to develop some conceptual designs for possible approaches to improve the safety of that stretch of George Ryder Road. They suggested 2 in that particular section. They suggested 3 more dealing with the stretch between Route 28 and the southern entrance to the Old Colony Rail Trail. The Bikeways Committee is not focused on that segment now. We're focused on the stretch that abuts the airport. They're referred to as Alternative 1 and Alternative 2. Alternative 1 does some relatively minor changes, improves signage, improves some striping, maintains a situation where cyclists and walkers would use the narrow shoulders on both the east side and the west side of the George Ryder Road. That, in our judgment, did not improve the safety terribly much. Alternative 2 is the alternative that the Bikeways Committee has actually voted in favor of pursuing. That would be, the model there is to provide a single off-road path connecting the north entrance to the old CRT and the southern entrance on the east side of George Ryder Road. That would bring it up, be an off-road 8-foot wide path with a small berm separating it from the roadway that would go up beyond, would go by the Nickerson Tree and Landscaping, the VFW, then up on the east side of the parking area by the airport ramp. There's a sidewalk which is 5 feet wide now, but adding cyclists to that with pedestrians is, in the judgment of the roadway design consultant, is not a safe and adequate approach. So the approach we're suggesting is we expand that pathway as it abuts the airport ramp from 5 feet to 8 feet. In doing so, we would move the parking spots back 2 feet. Mr. Harrison?
Yeah, could you put option, you mentioned 2 alternatives.
Yes.
Could you show option 1, which I think is just up there now, alternative 1?
That's actually alternative 2. I don't have a slide for alternative 1.
Well, let's leave it up there. Let's leave it up there and just quickly address this. This brings the bike path, this shifts the road over and eliminates the west side current bike path. Is that correct?
That's correct. The idea is to have all pedestrians and all cyclists travel on the east side of George Ryder Road.
And by doing that, you can expand, there's enough room to expand the bike path to widen it on the fence side of the road, and still accommodate enough room for parking for safe parking to get into and out of the parking places?
Yes, this was identified by HSH as realistic.
Okay.
With respect to the impact on parking, in their design, which you can see here, there are, I think it's 28 perpendicular parking slots there that would be there as a result of this change. It would be the addition of 2 handicap van accessible slots there to the right, where you can see the crosshatch, which the parking area does not have now. And then there are 4 parallel slots there, which are there now and would continue to exist there to the far right on that slide.
Right.
The net effect of this is there would be a loss of a single perpendicular parking slot, but with the addition of 2 handicapped van slots. So a fair trade-off there, I think.
Right, and there's no relocation of fencing or additional fencing required?
Under this conceptual plan, no. We would the fence line would remain, and we understand that would be marked. That would demark the airport, the property controlled by the airport.
Right.
On the roadside, that would be controlled by the town.
Correct.
So that's the direction that the Bikeways Committee is moving in. What we are doing at this point, this is very early in the process, but we're now submitting applications for funding for both to conduct a detailed design as well as allow for construction, assuming the design is successful. We'll be submitting an application to something called the Mass Trails, which is a state office that funds multi-use trails, and they require a match. We'll be approaching the Community Preservation Committee for the match. So there's 2 applications going to fund the next step. So if we're fortunate to be funded, we would then engage a highway design firm to do a detailed design of that multi-use path on that 1,300 feet of stretch of the road.
The airport manager has his hand up. He might want to ask you a question. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Harrison. Yes, Mr. O'Toole, thanks for reaching out yesterday, by the way. I just want to make sure I heard correctly. Your alternative 2 is your choice, correct?
That's the alternative that the Bikeways Committee voted unanimously to pursue, as well as it was recommended by the HSH as well.
Yes, I think that's an excellent choice. The alternative one, angled parking slots. The airport in the distant past had that. That was a disaster with traffic. So the perpendicular slots are certainly the way to go. And as per your design here, I would fully support that. That looks a good improvement of what we have today.
Thank you for that. I'm happy to answer any other questions or hear any other feedback from any of the commissioners.
Commissioners, do you have any feedback for Mr. O'Toole? Any questions about Mr. Cortese? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Harrison. Mr. O'Toole, thank you very much for the proposal. A little bit of background. I've been in Chatham since I've been 3 years old, and one of the reasons we moved here, one of the multiple reasons we moved here, and that I love this place so much, is the bikeways that we have. I use them pretty much year round. The challenge on this side, and I'm glad we're addressing it, from, I live in South Chatham over, is you have a lot of road areas where you have to bike on the road. And biking on the road is a challenge for motorists, and a challenge for bicyclists, and it's a challenge for pedestrians. This one in particular through here has always been confusing and a bit of a challenge with the lane on one side of the road going one way and then the other, then you have to cross in 2 spots. So I looked at reviewed this prior and just looked at it again and really appreciate it, and I think it's a great plan. And I like the idea of putting it on one side and then bringing the bikers well away from the road, and just having one cross point. And then it's really nice. I use it to go down, and I have to travel a lot in pieces. I try to use the bike path as much as I can. We bought our house in that location for that reason. But in pieces, I have to get on the road sometimes, and I've been very close to being hit. So this is a great thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
that. Commissioner Donovan.
Yeah, I would definitely support option 2. I've spent a lot of time down there, and I think that would be a great improvement for the bikeway. So good job with that.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Galen, do you have a comment? Okay. Commissioner Owens, you have a comment?
Yes, it looks like a great idea, and I know Cape Cod's a difficult place to squeeze things in, and Chatham has always had trouble with the skinny roads, lack of parking and such. And I can remember many years ago when Police Chief Nickerson worked very, very hard in getting the bike trail down to the end in Chatham. And there's a lot of little turns and across the street and in the woods and by people's homes. And I think there's a great idea of any kind of improvement, because I know that any secondary roads, it's hard to go the speed limit. And being down the airport quite a bit all year round, you have the walkers and the bicyclists and the people looking at the planes and the cars, and a little bit more space is going to go a long way. I think it's a great idea. Will you be cutting down any trees or shrubs in order to do this?
I think that I can't give you a good answer to that now. This is a conceptual design. There's probably a little bit of work to be done. There's I think a utility pole that would need to be moved. I don't believe if there's any movement of shrubs and trees, it's very limited, but we haven't really identified that level of detail. There's only a conceptual design that would come up in the more detailed design.
Great. Thank you very much for all your work.
And Commissioner Cortese, one final comment?
Yeah, just one final comment. It brought back a great memory thinking about the bike trail of bringing my daughter. We had a little. She had a bike that was a trailer essentially, but it was a bike with pedals, and I would take her to Rocking Unicorn via the bike trail every morning when she was in there. So I just want to say thank you. This is something that's near and dear, and it's great, and I appreciate it, and I'm like what the Cape has done with it and what we're doing with it. Thank you.
So Mr. O'Toole, any final comments? I think I endorse this as well. I think it's a great idea. I think you've heard the comments from the other commissioners, and I think you would have our endorsement to go ahead with it. We don't see any issues with regard to the airport, and I think it's a great thing. What's your time frame here?
So if everything goes according to plan, and the Bikeways Committee is awarded the monies from both Mass Trails, their decision would come toward the end of June. And that would be that point, if we obtain money from Mass Trails and from the Community Preservation Committee, in early summer in the new fiscal year, we would then be looking for a design firm to actually do the detailed design. That would probably extend over 4 or 5 months. At that point, you then select a construction contractor. That would take several months. So we're probably looking out, something in the year of a year in a perfect world, and hopefully it goes smoothly. If not, we'll regroup and try to find some other path to follow. But I think I very much appreciate the comments made by the airport commissioners on this. Very helpful.
Oh, you're welcome. And will you be in front of other venues with your?
Yeah. So we are scheduled to go before the Traffic Safety Commission in February. I'll be making this presentation or something very similar to it to the Board of Selectmen here on January 25th. And we're also meeting with some of the other abutters in a more informal basis. We've talked with Nickerson Tree and Landscape. We've talked to Tracy Shields there at Hangar B. We'll talk to the BFW as well, just to kind of give people an idea as to what we're doing and what the timetable may be.
Well, okay. Thank you so much. I think this will be a great boost for bicycling around Chatham and people who want to come in from Chatham.
That's the idea.
I had a friend of mine who bicycled here from Hyannis a couple of summers ago, and he said he made it most of the way on rail trail.
Super.
So it was great. It was good. This is wonderful. Thank you very much for your time and your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, commissioner reports. Commissioner Burke I don't think he's here yet. I think he was off Cape today and he wasn't sure when he would get back, but he did send me his report on the revolving fund just quickly. From December 9th to January 9th, rental receipts received $3,768.77 with a year-to-date yield of $21,393.85. Personal services, 12/9 to 1/9, $148.58. Year-to-date, $786.60. Purchased services, $7,700.36 for the last month. And year-to-date, $37,644.71. Hangar leases during the last month, $5,460. Year-to-date, $22,722.77. And again, I remind people that on the website, the Airport Commission website, on the town website, there are those financial graphs that you can access, I believe, from the main page. Commissioner Cortese, I believe you might have something or not? He went away for a moment. Commissioner Donovan, anything?
Nothing today, sorry,
Nothing for me
Nope.
either.
in the
Thanks.
interest of time.
Okay. Commissioner Cortese, you okay? You got anything?
Nothing today, I'm sorry. In the interest
That's
of
okay.
time, I'll table it to
That's
next
right.
month.
Commissioner Galen?
Nothing until we get to letter H on the agenda on public relations.
Okay, that's fine. Commissioner Owens, I think you had something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. I'd like to ask Mr. Whalen if he could report at the next meeting the progress being made to relocate the fisherman storage area in hopes that that's moving along at a steady pace. And also ask Mr. Whalen if he could report at the next meeting the progress of removing the osprey nest on the police station tower. And what if anything is in the works to be done to deter the osprey from returning? I just might suggest that the town look into the Audubon or any wildlife group to get some guidance on this. And I know in other places I've seen wire arrays set up and other means to keep birds from actually landing and building a nest. And or possibly finding a group to put some nesting poles near White Pond, which in an effort to keep the birds from flying across the runway several times a day. And that would probably have to maybe get the FAA involved in that and see if what they thought about putting some poles over on the White Pond side. I'm not sure what the status is of any control they have over White Pond, because that was was used for float planes for a long time. So I don't know if that's still under their any of their control or not. Other than that, just like to see how things are progressing. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. I have a couple of items. Just to give you all an update, applicants for the vacant commission seat have been interviewed. They were interviewed last Thursday. It's a good group of individuals, and we are now waiting for the select board to make their appointment, which I believe they will do between now and our next commission meeting in February. The Monomoy Community Services concert on July 1st is making progress with getting various bands. I know Sarah Swain will be there and her band. This, by the way, I think I said at the last meeting, is 6 to 10 on July 1st at the airport. And then another band from 8 to 10. It says here headline band. I don't know if that's the name or whether it's just a generic, they're trying to get a headline band. There will be general admission from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock with a cash bar and food vendors. They will have also VIP admission from 6 o'clock to 10. And because that's VIP admission, they'll be paying a little more for a few extra amenities. All sales will be cash. As far as it says here, it may change, but I imagine it'll all be cash. There will be some auction items. They're not sure yet how many, but there's one that will take a couple over to Nantucket. They'll get a flight over from the airport, including accommodations. And I imagine they'll get a flight back at some point as well. And they'll leave right after the concert if they can do it. And they have a party bucket with merchandise for a Chatham merchandise and tickets for, not tickets, but for a Chatham A's game, and a framed photo of your favorite place in Chatham. And there are probably going to be some other things coming, but that's where they're at right now. So that sounds like it's going to be a nice event. And I would encourage Chatham residents certainly to participate and provide some needed funds for the Monomoy Community Services. I also recently read an interesting article on 100 low lead aviation gas. So what I did was I put a progress report, which was from the Airline Owners and Pilots Association, on the website. It talks about unleaded gas and what it's going to be in the works in the relatively near future, but no specific time frame. They have problems with production, distribution, and the 100 octane requirements by general aviation aircraft. This is posted under, if you want to look at it, anyone interested in the situation with 100 low lead or unleaded, completely unleaded aviation fuel, it's posted under airport documents on the Airport Commission website. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the vehicle parking policy has been posted under airport governance, regulations, and agreements, and you'll find it in the local section. There's a federal, state, and local section in there, and it's under the local section, titled Vehicle Parking Policy. All right. Moving on, Airport Managers Report.
Thank you, Chairman Harrison. Yes, so the report isn't too lengthy tonight. I did want to add just to your previous comments about the 100 low lead and the new 100 low lead replacement fuels. Yes, that's an ongoing issue, and it is certainly up and coming. At some point, we will be changing fuels here at the Chatham Airport. It all depends on when availability comes for this alternative fuel, but guaranteed change will happen, and it's happening sooner than I think anyone thought. So something to plan for the future for sure. Back to the manager's report. The regard report attached as always. Item number 2 has to do with our, was annual open house and community day flying event at the airport each June. We were planning on trying to restart that again this spring, conditions permitting. And as usual, we are coming before the commission for that event to ask for the commission's approval for June the 11th, 2022. That's the Saturday. That's the Saturday before Father's Day weekend. Also, along with that, we're seeking the commission to discuss their annual donation to that event, as they have in the past, to help defray the costs of the public restrooms, fencing, security stuff, and public safety requirements for that event due to its large nature. Any questions, any of that stuff, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, that is the airport manager's report.
All right. Could you tell us, or tell me what has the Airport Commission contributed in the past to that event?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So initially, it's varied a bit. It's usually between $600 to $800 in the past. And I think actually the last 2 times it was $800.
Okay. All right. Mr. Galen?
To that point, specifically, the FAA allows for the Airport Commission to use airport revenue, airport revolving funds for such an event. Promotion of the airport and its activities are specifically allowed under FAA rules within the compliance handbook, or compliance manual, excuse me, to be precise.
I fully agree with Commissioner Guyland on that.
Okay. Yep, I think, yeah, we're certainly within our legal rights to contribute to that. There's no problem with that. Okay. I'd like a motion to endorse. I'm going to do 2 motions here. One to endorse the event, and the other one to discuss a donation. I have an idea, and then we'll go forward from there. So let's have a motion to endorse the event, or not.
So moved. Motion to endorse the event.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Roll call. Commissioner Cortese,
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan,
Yes.
Commissioner Galen,
Yes.
Commissioner Owens,
yes.
Commissioner Harrison, yes. With regard to the donation, I would like to see if we could up it to $1,000 this year. I think we're in pretty good shape to do that. So I'd like a brief discussion on that, if you agree or disagree, or whether you think we should keep it at the previous level. Commissioner Galen.
I agree with $1,000, but I just would prefer we call it not a donation. It is money set aside to help defray expenses for the event, which again is a legitimate promotional event for CQX.
Okay. Keep that.
And yes, Mr. Harrison.
Keep that.
Commissioner Harrison in the past.
To form the motion. Okay.
I'll do a motion that way.
Okay. Let's see. Commissioner Donovan, any comments?
No, I think it's appropriate to raise it to 1,000. And it's been a great event in the past and really promotes the airport and the community. So all for it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese?
Yeah, I vote for it. I think it's a great event for the community, and it's great to see the smiles on a lot of children's faces when they're at the event, and people enjoy it.
Yeah, they do. It's a wonderful event. Commissioner Owens?
It really is.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and also remind people that this is a free event, and I don't believe the airport manager's making vacation money off of it. And there's been a tremendous attendance there the last two I know, and have had good weather, had good displays, and a lot of happy people, and getting more friends that are pro airport.
Yeah. Commissioner Galen, thank you.
In addition, the event also highlights and spotlights other vendors from town, other businesses display, sell wares, other nonprofits like the library have in the past set up displays. So it's good for not just CQX, but for the town as a whole.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, Commissioner Guyland. Each year it's themed not just as an aviation event, it's termed as a town community day, airport open house, fly-in, and car show. And any and all town agencies are welcome to attend and contact us if they want to be involved.
Are we still calling it planes, trains, and automobiles?
As to date, that's still the theme, but we are still in the early planning stages, so that may change slightly due to input. We are trying to come up with some new ideas for this year that change things up a little bit, but that still will more than likely be the prime theme.
Yeah, I would ask the other commissioners if you have any ideas at all for what could be there, like if you have a connection with an aircraft group or a particular antique airplane or something that might be good to display at the show, that would be great. I know that the commissioners in the past have provided a lot of sweat equity for this, and I hope it continues again this year. That weekend in June is early, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. Commissioner Cortese, you have another comment?
Yeah, I was going to, echoing your comment on the sweat equity, I was going to say this is a majority volunteer event.
Right.
And all the time is put into it. It has cost, Mr. Howard, the airport manager, has paid for those costs in past years. We've tried to help that situation. But it's great. It's a great event. I've participated in years. I can't wait for it to come back because it brings so many people together, and it's a great kickoff to the summer. So
yeah, it's a nice way to show off the airport.
Certainly is.
Okay, so
people love it. That's the key.
Yep. Commissioner Galen, you want to make a motion? You had one there pretty close.
I move that we allocate $1,000 to help defray and offset costs and expenses associated with the June 11th, 2022 CQX open house.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Those in favor? Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison? An unequivocal yes. You're on as far as
Thank
we're
you,
concerned.
Okay,
Pardon?
thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
All right, we need to make a final motion to accept the airport manager's report. I need a motion.
Motion to accept.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Hang on. There we go. All right. Commissioner Burke. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Donovan.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison. Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. We will move on to the engineer's report. Mr. Karen, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, members of the Airport Commission. So last month I had mentioned that we were preparing a scope of work and fee for the project to assist the Airport Commission in preliminary research and outreach to property owners that may be affected by future tree clearing. I've gone ahead and prepared that. I sent that off. It's in the package for the Commission's review for this evening. I am looking for a vote to approve Gale's scope and fee. Again, the purpose of this work is to provide initial outreach to those property owners where, as part of the master plan, we've identified vegetative obstructions on private property. Really what we're looking to do, and Mr. Chairman, feel free to jump in and fill in the blanks here if I've missed something, but it's to just have, like I said, those initial conversations, discuss what the issues are that the Airport Commission is faced with, how it may affect their properties, what the Airport Commission's thinking in terms of mitigation and removal of trees to address the safety hazard and the safety project at the airport, and really just answer questions that property owners may have about the process, about Chapter 100, about navigation easements. What exactly does a navigation easement mean? And just things of that nature. And just looking, like I say, to provide more or less a back and forth and an open dialogue between those property owners that may be affected by potential future tree clearing. So like I said, the scope and fee is in the Commission's package this evening for consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has on the scope that I've prepared.
The only thing I have, I think what we've done so far, what you've outlined here is exactly the way we want to proceed. With regard to a vote, do we take it all together? I guess we probably should. The vote to accept the scope and the fee that goes along with it, or those two, do you think those are two separate votes? What's your experience in the past? Because this is a new for me.
I would say the scope and fee are one and the same. I mean, if you look at the scope itself, which just outlines the tasks, and then I get into what we call our Appendix A, which is our typical itemization of fees. It's basically just taking the scope, putting it into that Excel spreadsheet, and then assigning hours to each of those tasks.
Right, okay. I just wanted to make it clear to the public that that's how it's going to work. So it was kind of a loaded question on my part, but I just wanted people to understand that it's all one item. All right, Commissioner Galen, yeah.
Still talking about the fees involved. Would this, at the end of the project, should the project get federal and state funding, would these fees be rolled into that? Or is this a fee that's simply picked up by the Airport Commission?
Yeah, there's a lot of what we call AIP eligible work in here, assuming it, if you were to get an aviation easement, then yes, many of the tasks that are in here, if not all of them, are eligible for AIP funding. That is correct.
Right. Okay.
If at the end of the project you don't have perpetual rights or that aviation easement, then no, the FAA does not participate in funding of those tasks.
Understood. Thank you for clarification.
Okay. So commissioners, the total amount of this that we'll be voting on is $17,464 for the two parts. The Article A, which is 2,306, and Article B, which is 15,158 for a total of $17,464. Does anyone have any more comments on that? Hearing none. Let's take a vote on that. If someone would make a motion, please. Commissioner Galen.
I move that we accept the scope of work as presented by Gale Associates and move on with the project.
Would you add in? Well, I guess the scope would include the fee. So yeah, we'll just keep it at that. Okay.
The scope and the associated fees and move on with the project.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Those in favor of accepting the scope and associated fees for the upcoming project, I guess it's not upcoming anymore, but anyway, so signify. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you, gentlemen. And unless, Mr. Karen, unless there's anything else from you regarding moving forward?
Nope, that's it. I mean, you've already covered the fact that the letters have already gone out to property owners, and we've started receiving some phone calls, and we'll be looking forward to keeping the commission abreast of those discussions and conversations.
Yeah, we'll have a deeper discussion at the next meeting with regard to how many responses we received and where we are in the process. Okay. A motion to accept the engineer's report.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you.
Second.
Second. Thank you. Vote to accept the engineer's report. Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, I go back, is an update on the runway protection zone. And basically, in the package, you'll see that the letter that we received from the planning board back on November 30th, and we have accepted the request of the planning board, and we will be designing an overlay district plan, and that'll be ready for review at the February meeting, our February meeting, the Airport Commission meeting, and then that'll be forwarded on to the Select Board and the Planning Board in time for the March 4th warrant deadline. Mr. Whalen, I see you're on. Did you want to show one of the exhibits?
Yeah, I'll just do a quick screen share here. So, but again, I think you essentially covered, the key items here. Again, this is really just intended to keep everybody involved, aware of the process. So, in response to a previous question from a citizen, there will be opportunity to see the proposed RPZ language at the February Airport Commission, where there'll be requests to vote to send it on to the Select Board and Planning Board. And then also what the graphic I have here is just basically, again, showing for there's the non-fiscal to meet the internal town meeting planning deadline of March 4th. So that would also get submitted to concurrently to the town manager as well. So more to come on that, and opportunity to review it in the upcoming package and upcoming meeting.
Okay, thanks so much. There's no vote, no action needed to be taken on that, so we'll move on. The Charter Review Committee meeting report. I sent an email to John Carr the other day, and I called him, and he said the other day when I sent the email that there wasn't really anything on the agenda that they thought that would involve the Airport Commission. I couldn't attend the meeting yesterday, so I don't know if there was anything. I did try to call him today and ask if there was anything that he had for me for this evening, and he never got back to me, so I'm taking that as no news is good news, so to speak. So moving on, the Airport Commission engagement of legal counsel. The update on that is that the letter has been written. It is waiting for signature in the town office. I believe that the Select Board needs to weigh in on it. And once they have done that, and they either give us their blessing or not, then we'll know. But right now, we're still kind of in limbo with that. So no action necessary there. However, this next one on our public relations, we will review the proposals. Commissioner Galen will lead the discussion on that, and we will have a vote at the end to select a public relations firm that we can use going forward. So, Commissioner Galen, the floor is yours.
In the past year, the commission has looked into the potential for hiring a public relations firm to help us better communicate with the community at large on all issues concerning the airport operations and aviation in and around Chatham. Because, as has been pointed out on numerous occasions, we don't always get the job done very well in getting our message out, getting our thoughts communicated, or answering some of the questions of the public at large. So we decided, okay, since the FAA specifically encourages and allows for promotion of the airport, which includes public relations, operations, and advertising, et cetera, we would avail ourselves of this allowance. In the course of the last year, we have talked to about 7 PR firms. We had chosen one firm that was based on the Cape earlier in the year. Unfortunately, a conflict of interest of one of its principals mitigated that as a possibility. And subsequent to that, when the conflict disappeared, the agency decided they did not want to engage. Not every PR firm wants to take on a municipal client with the potential of the kind of issues that surround them, as well as the regulations that go into working with a municipal organization in terms of funding, budget, etc. But of the 7 or so firms, we've got proposals back over time from 3 showing an interest, all of whom were are registered with the state of Massachusetts. Even if they weren't necessarily headquartered here, these 3 are. There were 2 firms that were headquartered outside of the state that showed an interest and brought some interesting things to the table, but they didn't come through with a full proposal. The proposals are in the packet from the 3 finalists, so to speak, and I hope people took at least a little look at them. There were some earlier comments in the public portion of the meeting about one of the portions of one of the proposals from a company called Elevate concerning the way they worded some of the issues here in town. Now, that's the interpretation done by the proposal writer. And having been involved in these kind of things for the last 5 decades, I can tell you that the proposal was written to gain the favor of the commission and was slanted in that direction. So the verbiage I read through, so to speak, and it was a bunch of assumptions made on research. And that group did do a lot of research. If you really read through their proposal, you can see they spent time and effort doing research. The firm I'd like to propose and put forth as the choice I would have is John Guilfoyle Public Relations, LLC, based in the Boston area. John Guilfoyle is a former Globe reporter. The heart of his staff are former reporters. I've found historically they make the best in terms of doing PR because the audience they're looking for, their primary audience is the public and the media that talks to the public. So they're going to come at it understanding what that media needs and wants and be able to put the best foot forward to communicate with that media, who hence will be communicating with the public. Their proposal is short and sweet, which I also like. Not a lot of extra verbiage to just, to quote, blow smoke up our skirts, which a lot of the other proposals have and generally do. A lot dog and pony show. They're very much to the point. And they understand the key to this job is sitting down with the commission, getting a feel for what's going on, what issues we need to address, what topics we need to cover, how we have to cover it, and what the audience is like here in town, as well as here on the Cape. And that's the media audience as well as the community. Their prices were reasonable. They understand the constraints of working for a community. They have worked for airports in the past. We actually met the organization at a statewide airport conference where they made a presentation, which impressed us on the spot. They've worked with fire departments, police departments, town governments, schools, libraries, in crisis as well as in general situations. I bring up crises because, look, we've been lucky, and hopefully our luck will continue, but there's always a chance for a crisis situation, and it's nice to know we'd have a professional organization ready to help out should that occur. Best to be prepared for those things in advance and not after it happens when it's too late. So that's it. Like I said, the proposals are all in the packet. John Guilfoyle would be my choice. They proposed a wide-ranging 3-part program. We're looking at probably taking the first part of it, the general PR, and as far as a video or a website, that would be determined as we go along. Questions?
Okay. Other commissioners, let's go down the list. Commissioner Cortese, any questions for Commissioner Galen?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Donovan, any questions or comments?
I don't have any real questions. I don't have a ton of experience in PR stuff, but I know Mike does, and I've known him for years, so I would lean towards the John Boyle one too. I mean, they seem to be the most budget conscious one, and Mike says they're good. I'd that. So.
Okay. Commissioner Owens?
I think Mike's doing a good job with this, and my only comment would be, I was really not trying to be a wise guy, but with all the false information around, people are jumping on it without asking us. We have a website. We answer questions if people email us. I think the airport commission and the airport manager have been doing a great job for years and years and years. And it's too bad that there's a small amount of people that are constantly throwing a monkey wrench into it. And I think if we can get the public, or the majority of the public, to actually listen and ask questions, use the website, read the agendas, I think we can get in a better position. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you. I also was at that aviation conference and was very impressed with the presentation that the John Guilfoyle group put forth. We chatted with them afterwards, and they made a good bunch of points with regard to, as we told them about our situation here and what we needed and so on. So I would support them as well. I think they'd be a good choice, and I think they'd be easy to work with. I think they'd be responsive to our needs, and like Commissioner Galen said, they are reasonable price-wise. So,
Mike?
Oh, yeah. Commissioner Cortese.
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Galen. Just wanted to say I support that decision as well with John. Was also at that same meeting. The three of us were there, and I think it's the right choice, and I appreciate the work on this.
Okay.
Again, just to reiterate, their experience with municipal government agencies, et cetera, they understand the pricing that has to fit. As was, again, said earlier in the meeting, one of the other agencies that proposed has a rather hefty price range to get their better people. Guilfoyle does not work that way, and I really like that. I much prefer an agency that comes at it as a project, as a program, because they want to get the job done and not worry about 15 minutes here, a half hour there, 10 minutes here. So none of us sit there looking at the clock, but no, we want to get it done. And as far as to why, whether we think we're getting the message across properly and are being transparent is one thing. If the people perceive we're not, that's legitimate. It's good to have a third party informed outsider to look at us and say, guys, you got to get your act together. That's what we're hiring to do, is not only to help us get the message out, but to keep us on point at the same time.
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
And this is a charged time. It always seems to have been, and it's great to have an outside opinion. So I'm in full support.
Okay. I'd like someone to make a motion to select the John Guilfoyle Public Relations Firm as the public relations firm for Chatham, for the Chatham Airport Commission. Go ahead.
Good.
I move that we hire John Guilfoyle Public Relations LLC to be the agency of record for Chatham Airport Commission with their first area of public relations as outlined in their proposal that is part of today's packet.
Okay.
Second.
Do you have a second? Thank you. Okay. We'll have a vote on that to select John Guilfoyle as the public relations firm. Going forward, Commissioner Cortese.
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan.
Yes.
Commissioner Galen.
Yes.
And Commissioner Owens.
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you all very much. Last but not least, item I, Federal Aviation Administration FAA grant updates. Good, Mr. Whalen, you came on right on cue. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, on the previous, I actually just raised my hand quickly on the previous, and just to be clear, that vote, that's coming from the airport revolving fund.
Oh, correct. Sorry.
In response to an earlier question that had been raised.
Thank you. I had forgotten that. All right. So under Federal Aviation Administration grant updates. If we could bring the first one up, the CRRSA. This grant we have signed off on earlier. It's supplemental, just like the grants that the federal government gave to everybody personally. There are no strings attached to this other than the amount of time we have to spend it, which is 4 years from acceptance. We have accepted this. The paperwork was put in back, I believe, last spring, if I'm not mistaken. And we just have to figure out a way to spend it. And you'll note in the highlights there on the screen, those are the provisos that under which we can use this money. And its purposes include the reimbursement of an airport's operational and maintenance expenses or debt service payments in accordance with the limitations prescribed in the Act. And the grants may be used to reimburse airport operational and maintenance expenses directly related to Chatham Municipal Airport incurred no earlier than January 20th, 2020. So we can go back and look at some of those expenses. One of the things that this act is really kind of geared toward is that paragraph above the red arrows where you see that it says funding for costs related to operations, personnel, cleaning, sanitization, janitorial services, combating the spread of pathogens at the airport, and debt service payments. Fortunately, we don't have any debt service, but some of those other things we will be fitting into. So it's relatively general. It's the federal government, just like there were no stipulations on the money we all got in the checks from the federal government. It's the same with this, except it's geared toward airports. The next one is a $30,000 grant, I'm sorry, $32,000 grant that we will need to vote to accept tonight. And it has pretty much the same stipulations as the other one did. Again, you'll see in the arrows, if you read it, it's almost the same exact wording, not only within the red arrow area, but above. Janitorial services, sanitization, combating the spread of pathogens, debt service, and so on. So again, it's a very broad usage of this money. And I would suggest that we go ahead and certainly accept it. It's basically free money. I think we'd be crazy if we didn't. So before we go on to the very last one, can I have a motion to accept the go ahead and do the paperwork for the airport rescue grant for $32,000?
Motion to pursue the grant.
Okay. So we're going to motion to accept the airport rescue grant.
Accept it. Yeah.
Yep. For $32,000. Again, this one has a 4-year time frame from the time we sign it. Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Cortese. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I didn't catch who was that. Oh, Peter,
Second.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, roll call. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Donovan
Yes.
and Commissioner Galen
Yes.
and Commissioner Owens
Yes.
and Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you very much. And moving on, the very last one, we have only received, so far, only received information on this one. But it's $159,000. It's called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, Airport Infrastructure Grants, and it's from the recently enacted Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. This is 159,000. I noticed when these first came out, there were many airports across the state that got money for this. Some got over $1 million. I think Nantucket got over $1 million. Others, I think there was one other that got $1 million. It might have been Worcester, and then of course Logan got a huge amount. But other airports did get. I think every airport, in fact, got money from this infrastructure grant. And this one, as I understand it, so far, is totally wide open. So again, we're not going to have to accept this tonight until we get the information, the further information on it. But again, I think this is a wonderful thing going forward to look at. Just so you all know, if we take all this together, including the original 30,000, that's $234,000 of grants that have come to the airport over the last year and a half from the federal government, with no strings attached, no grant assurances, no nothing. It's just, here's the money, do what you can with it. And as we saw, they're really very broad in how they define how we expend it. So I think this is a great thing going forward. So I appreciate your help with that, especially on approval or acceptance of that one. Mr. Whalen, is there anything else I need to add with those grants? I don't think so.
No, I think again, accepting the middle grant, the airport grant, was the really only action item. And again, I think further discussion at future meetings on how to apply these grants will be warranted, so that it's clear how the commission is going to apply these grants to various airport revolving fund expenses.
Right, and I might talk to some of the other airports and see exactly what they did with some of their money, and see what we can do instead of kind of grasping at straws. With regard to future agenda topics, we've taken care of, I believe that's also in the package, we've taken care of a lot of those. As I've said in the past, and I'm hoping to get this going now that we're in the new year with group forums, whether that'll be, hopefully I'll get something together between now and the next meeting so that we can move forward with that and maybe set up a schedule and find some speakers for those small group forums. They'll probably have to be remote. Right now, we're technically remote until April 1st. I don't know whether the governor will extend that or not, given the Omicron situation we're going through now. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't extend it. But those agenda items that are on here, I know Mr. Haas has one, Mr. Quinn, Mr. Haas actually has two. And the others, as I'm looking here, we've answered. So those of you, let's see, Mrs. Freeman on the mission statement, we'll look at that. Going forward, Mr. Buckley, this is what you wanted in the package. And Ms. Lofgren, I don't know if you're out there tonight, but the airport representation and let's see, for the zoning, I think we've taken care of that. Yeah, it says here July 23rd, 2020 ZBA meeting. So if you could refer to that, that's been taken care of. Our next meeting is February 9th, 2022 at 5 p.m. And unless there's something else from the commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is any former commission members out there in TV land that could have any information on when the last time bushes or trees were cut
Huh?
on other people's property besides the airport?
Oh, that would have to be, you'd have to go way, way back. I don't think that, yeah, I don't think we could, I don't think there's an answer to that one.
I might suggest maybe it was in the 80s.
That could have been. I really don't know.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Hunter. Perhaps he knows a little bit information.
Yep. That'd probably
This,
be
this,
good. Yeah.
Mr. Owens, this is from Chapter 100, as you're referring to, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It's probably been a while.
I see Mr. Howard's hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So we could reach out to former Chairman Hunter. He may have some recollection of that. I do believe I've asked him that in the past, and I don't recall his answer. But we could certainly reach out to him on that. And one other question: could you tell me again the next meeting date? I missed that.
February 9th.
Thank you.
Let me just take a quick look at my calendar here. I believe that's it. Yes,
Yeah,
Wednesday
that's
the 9th.
Okay, thank you.
Same time, same place. Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. And thank you
Motion
all
to
for your
adjourn.
help, by the way.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cortese?
Yes.
Yes, yep. Okay. Commissioner Donovan?
Yes.
Commissioner Galen?
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Yes.
And Commissioner Harrison, yes. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Channel 18, for your help. And thank you to all the public who participated earlier. I'm sorry if we didn't answer your questions the way you might have wanted to hear them, but at least we tried. So thank you very much for your participation, and we will try to get some of those things taken care of that were brought up earlier and give you an update at the next meeting. One of the things that you might do is send an email to the Airport Commission if you have further questions about anything regarding the tonight's agenda, and we'll do our best to take care of it. All righty.